I'm Preeti Kaur. Coming up in the next 1 hour. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi meets Qatari counterpart in Doha, discusses ways to boost ties between the two nations. To meet Amir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad today. Israel vows more action against Hamas in Rafah amid global calls for restraint. Launches deadly airstrikes on Lebanon in retaliation to Hezbollah rocket fire that killed an Israeli soldier. India wins the toss and opts to bat first against England in the third test match at Rajkot. Dhruv, Jurel and Sarfaraz make their debut. On the second leg of his West Asia tour, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi reached Qatar. He received a warm welcome by a large number of Indian diaspora in Doha. The Prime Minister reciprocated the warm greetings he received on his arrival. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi met Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman Al Thani. Discussions covered expanding bilateral cooperation in sectors such as trade and investment, energy, finance, among others, were also held during the meeting. Later in the day, Prime Minister Modi will hold a bilateral meeting with Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad, the Emir of Qatar, and also other key dignitaries. This will be Prime Minister Modi's second visit to Qatar. The bilateral relationship between India and Qatar that has seen steady growth includes a comprehensive span, including political ties, trade and investment linkages, a strong energy partnership, and ties in the field of culture, education, and security. A detailed report ahead.
Of his West Asia visit, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi reached Qatar. This will be his second visit to the nation. Prime Minister Modi had last visited Qatar in 2016. Amir of Qatar, Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, had paid a state visit to India in March 2015. Prime Minister Modi met the Amir during the COP28 summit at Dubai in December 2023. The two leaders also met on the sidelines of UN General Assembly 2023, which marked 50 years of India-Qatar diplomatic relations. Bilateral trade and investment between Qatar and India during financial year 2022-23 was pegged at $20 billion. Qatari investment in India stood at over $1.5 billion last year. Indian investment in Qatar has been over $450 million. Over 15,000 Indian companies operate in Qatar. Qatar is also the largest supplier of LNG to India, accounting for over 48% of India's global LNG procurement. India regularly participates in the biennial Doha International Maritime Defence Exhibition and Conference (DIMDEX) in Qatar. The second edition of bilateral exercise Zair al-Bahar was held in August 2021. Indian naval and coast guard ships regularly visit Qatar, highlighting the cultural connect between the two countries and engaging with the Indian diaspora. Over 800,000 Indian nationals reside in Qatar, forming one of the largest expat communities of Indians abroad. Year 2019 was also celebrated as India-Qatar Year of Culture. In the wake of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav celebrations, a 3-day cultural festival, Passage to India, was held in March 2023 in Qatar. Indian Sports Centre in Doha made it to the Guinness World Record for conducting a yoga session with maximum number of nationalities. The Indian Cultural Centre organizes cultural events and activities in Qatar. The visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi to Qatar is expected to further deepen the India-Qatar partnership.
All right, DD India correspondent Arun Sharma joins us from Doha. Arun, good morning. We've just given the Prime Minister's engagements yesterday after he landed in Doha. He met the Prime Minister there. Get us a sense of what all will be the engagements today. The Prime Minister will be meeting the Emir there and also other dignitaries.
Good morning, Preeti. Well, indeed, it's going to be a significant day as far as Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Qatar is concerned. Yesterday, after completing his visit to UAE, we know this fact that Prime Minister Narendra Modi met the Prime Minister of Qatar, and today, Prime Minister Narendra Modi holding bilateral meeting with the Emir of Qatar. Now, a ceremonial welcome will also be accorded to Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and of course, bilateral meetings. A bilateral meeting with the Emir of Qatar is lined up today. This visit, if you look at the optics of the visit is, of course, going to be very short. But yes, a lot of deliverables are expected as far as this visit is concerned, ranging from the energy, the finance, and of course, how to take the bilateral relationship forward is, what will be on the agenda as far as the meeting between Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Emir of Qatar is concerned. Also, we know this fact that, when Indian Prime Minister visits any country, his focus is on the fact that how can the Indian diaspora, how can the topics, the agenda, the issues can be kept, whenever these high-level meetings are, conducted. So yes, we know this fact that close to 8 lakh or 0.8 million, Indians are living in Qatar, and they make a very strong diaspora here. So yes, apart from energy security, financial aspect, taking bilateral relationship forward, a diaspora connect, or of course, how can the issues of diaspora can be kept at the highest level? That is also likely on this, agenda when Prime Minister Narendra Modi meets the Emir of the Qatar. And this meeting is also going to be very much personal because it is likely that Prime Minister Narendra Modi will also be meeting the father of the Emir. So, a more bond-forming and close and personal chemistry will also be, seen as far as this visit is concerned. So, all in all, this visit of Indian Prime Minister will ensure that how can both relationship between India and Qatar can reach to new heights.
All right. So, this will be focusing on how the relationship between the two countries can reach to new heights. Arun, also, we've seen how the relationship between India and Qatar has strengthened because just recently we saw how the death sentence of ex-Navy personnel, 8 of them, had been commuted and they had been sent back to India. That, in fact, speaks volumes of the relationship between the two countries. Let us understand from you, how far has the relationship traveled, and over the years, how far has it evolved and blossomed?
Absolutely. Also, Preeti, that 2023 was a landmark year for both India and Qatar because both India and Qatar completed 50 years of their diplomatic ties. And the way Prime Minister Narendra Modi is engaged with the Emir of Qatar on various platforms, last in December 2023, we saw how both the leaders engaged on the sidelines of COP28, be it on the sidelines of UNGA. And of course, we also know this fact that this is Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's second visit. Last he visited in 2016, and this time he's visiting in 2024. And last time when he visited Qatar, he also interacted with the blue-collar workers who are working here. There was a diaspora connect as well because he addressed the Indian diaspora here as well. And this time around, he's visiting Qatar in 2024. So yes, the relation between India and Qatar has strengthened in last many years, and also for the fact, as you mentioned about the point that how the 8 naval officers were released. We know this fact, and sources have been telling us, even the Ministry of External Affairs has clearly mentioned this point, that it is because of the personal intervention of Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, the chemistry, the bond between both the leaders that has led to this diplomatic victory of India, whereby these 8 Indian naval officers were released. And we know this fact that when it comes to Qatar, Qatar is very strict to its rules. It respects its judiciary, and there are various aspects to it. But yes, it is because of the bond, the personal intervention of Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, the 8 Indian officers were released. So yes, it speaks the volume of the relationship between India and Qatar, and also for the fact that Qatar looks India as a big market as well, because 50% of the LNG requirement India imports from Qatar, and on one side India is looking to diversify its energy mix. Our energy basket is concerned, be it the green energy, be it the conventional energy, the renewable sources of energy, and various modes of energy basket. So India is also exploring various opportunities. Recently, we know this fact that LNG contract was signed, between India and Qatar for the long-term supply of the LNG. So it shows that, be it diaspora, be it India's soft power, that is yoga, records have been created here in Qatar as far as performing yoga is concerned. So be it diaspora, be it the soft power of India, be it the energy dependence, and be it the, of course, the economic aspect. All of these are strengthening the India-Qatar relationship, and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is leaving no stone unturned to ensure that this relationship can take new heights. And therefore, today Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be meeting with the Amir, and when he meets with the Amir, a lot of aspects, multiple aspects of India-Qatar relationships will be discussed and will be on the table of both the leaders.
All right, Arun, thank you so much for joining in with those details and explaining to us what all could be taken up. That is our correspondent, Arun Sharma, joining us and explaining to us how the relationship between the two countries has strengthened, and also what all could be taken up today when the Indian Prime Minister meets the leadership of Qatar. He will be meeting the Emir. Yesterday, the Prime Minister met the Prime Minister of Qatar, and today he will also be given a ceremonial welcome there in Qatar. We'll keep you posted. Up next, let's turn focus to Sri Lanka. As a global fintech leader, India leads in terms of all real-time payments made worldwide. With the launch of UPI transactions in Sri Lanka and Mauritius by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, it is hoped that this would revolutionize the digital transactions in these countries as well. Presence of UPI will not only allow Indian tourists ease in transacting in the Indian rupee, but also make it hazard-free by removing the need for converting money to hard currencies. DD India's correspondent Ahmed Muin Farooqi reports on this.
With the launch of Unified Payments Interface in Sri Lanka and its linkage with Lanka Pay or Lanka QR, the Indian tourists would directly be allowed to use UPI in Sri Lanka, just like they have been using it in India. Indian nationals would now be allowed to make payments in Indian rupees on UPI-enabled apps, which will directly get credited into the merchant establishment accounts in Lankan rupees. Let's have a feel of the payment experience in one of these shops. So I am inside one of these shops and I will be using my Bhim app. We have a UPI branding that has been placed here that shows that the Lanka QR will accept UPI payments as well. The money has been sent. So I'm right now at one of the most hustling and bustling places in Colombo, the Colombo Business District. We will have a look at how UPI can be used for making transactions here as well. So I'm in one of these merchant establishments who are accepting UPI payments. Again, I'll be trying my Bhim app and making a small transaction. And the transaction is through.
The Supreme Court of India on Thursday will deliver the verdict on petitions challenging the validity of the Electoral Bond scheme of political funding. A 5-judge constitution bench headed by Chief Justice of India, D.Y. Chandrachud, will pronounce the order on the legal sanctity of the Electoral Bond scheme ahead of the general elections in India. Last year, on November 2nd, the court reserved its judgment in the matter. India's anti-money laundering agency, Enforcement Directorate, has issued a 6th summon to Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal in a money laundering probe related to irregularities in the Delhi excise policy case. The agency has summoned Kejriwal to join the investigation on February 19th. The sixth summon comes days after a Delhi court, acting on a complaint filed by the Enforcement Directorate, directed Kejriwal to appear before it on February 17th. The court noted that prima facie, the AAP chief was legally bound to comply. A quick look at other stories making it to the headlines from across India. The annual Brahmotsavam Festival of the renowned Kamakshi Amman temple commenced in South Indian state of Tamil Nadu today. The festival begins with the ceremonial flag hoisting on the temple's golden post, followed by special rituals and decorations featuring Kamakshi Amman alongside Goddess Lakshmi and Saraswati. A massive fire broke out in the storage house of the Jute Corporation of India Limited in India's Assam. According to the authorities, there is no report of any casualty in the fire incident. The firefighters have reached at the spot and have brought the fire under control. India's Union Railways Minister Ashwini Vnav inspected development work of Puri railway station in the Indian state of Odisha. The new station building will be ready for devotees at Puri with all modern facilities soon. After the inspection, the minister also offered prayers at Jagannath Puri temple. To hold simultaneous elections in India, One Nation, One Election Committee members interacted with leading economists of the country. A paper co-authored by former chairman of 15th Finance Commission, N.K. Singh, presented to the high-level committee. The paper brought out that there are wider economic ramifications of holding back-to-back elections in addition to repetitive expenses. We're heading for a short break, but still to come on this edition of DD India News Hour. Rejecting Trump's concern over Biden's growing age, Russian President Vladimir Putin calls President Biden more experienced and predictable. Ahead of next weekend's primary vote, war of words continues between Donald Trump and Nikki Haley. Democrat Tom Suozzi secures victory in special election, succeeding disgraced U.S. legislator George Santos. Stay with us for more details.
India that invents. India that innovates. India that excites. India that invites. Land of possibilities. Teeming with opportunities. Watch India Ideas each Thursday, 8 p.m. only on DD India.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India News Hour. Let's get to more international updates. Israel vowed to continue with a powerful operation in Gaza's Rafah, even as calls mounted for it to hold off sending troops into the territory's overcrowded far southern city. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who is under growing international pressure to hold off the conflict, gave no indication as to when the offensive might take place or where the hundreds of thousands of people now crammed into Rafah might go. His comments came a day after talks in Cairo on a possible ceasefire and the handover of hostages held by Hamas ended inconclusively, stoking fears among the displaced Palestinians that Israel would soon storm Rafah, which abuts Egypt. Earlier, Netanyahu said that Israel will fight until complete victory, and this includes a powerful action in Rafah as well. Israel carried out extensive airstrikes on villages across southern Lebanon on Wednesday in response to a deadly rocket attack on northern Israel by Hezbollah. Hezbollah and the Israeli military have been exchanging fire along the Israel-Lebanon border for more than 4 months now after the Lebanese armed group launched rockets across the disputed frontier. Hezbollah did not announce any operations on Wednesday. The head of its executive council said that Israel's attacks into the Lebanese territory on Wednesday cannot pass without a response. An Israeli government spokesperson told journalists that rocket barrages from Lebanon on Wednesday morning had left 1 Israeli woman soldier dead and another 8 hospitalized. Meanwhile, the government reiterated that Israel is not interested in a war on 2 fronts, but if provoked, they will respond forcefully. More support for Ukraine is at the top of the agenda for NATO defense ministers during their meeting in Brussels. The 31-nation military alliance says it is focusing on increasing defense spending and providing more ammunition to Ukraine. DD India's correspondent Ishan Garg reports from Brussels.
Mobilizing more support for Ukraine. That's the message from the NATO here. The Secretary General of the 31-nation military alliance says that the bloc is going to move towards procuring more ammunition for Ukraine. He says in the short term, the group is relying on its own stockpile and purchases from other nations. But in the long term, Stoltenberg says countries will have to ramp up their defense production to meet Ukraine's demands as it enters the third year of its war with Russia.
In the past few months, NATO has agreed contracts worth $10 billion. And just this week, Germany launched the construction of a new ammunition factory in Lower Saxony. At full capacity, it will produce around 200,000 artillery shells per year.
This message of solidarity was front and center when NATO members and 24 other partners who make up the Ukraine Defense Contact Group held a meeting on Wednesday. Another meeting of the NATO-Ukraine Council is taking place on Thursday. These ministerial meetings are setting the stage for a NATO summit in Washington later this year. But they also come at a time when members of the bloc have been criticized by US presidential hopeful Donald Trump for not spending enough on their own defense. There are concerns in Brussels that the US could pull support from NATO if Trump wins the presidency in November. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg says those comments undermine the bloc's commitment to common defense, and he expects the US's support to continue, not only for the sake of Europe's security, but also for America's own defenses. He says countries are spending more money as they have agreed to invest $380 billion just this year. That's 11% higher than last year and accounts for nearly 2% of the total GDP of the NATO countries, even though countries are not individually hitting that 2% GDP target. Ishan Garg in Brussels, reporting for DD India.
Ukraine claims to have sunk a Russian landing warship, the Cesar Kanikov, off the coast of occupied Crimea in an operation with naval drones. Ukrainian military intelligence released video on Wednesday that it said showed several naval drones approaching a large vessel at night and at least one large explosion. Ukraine's GUR military intelligence agency said the warship appeared to have been loaded when it sank and that before the attack, it had spent some 10 days at a loading site used by the Russian military. The Project 775 warship, one of Russia's newest vessels, has a crew of 87 and took part in wars in Georgia, Syria and Ukraine. The United Nations highest court ruled that it will hear a case in which Kyiv has requested it to declare that it did not commit genocide in eastern Ukraine on Friday, as claimed by Russia as a pretext for attacking its neighbor. The judges agreed to consider only a part of the plea filed by Ukraine to rule on whether the Russian invasion violated the 1948 Genocide Convention or not. The court had jurisdiction to hear just a small part of the original case, which says Ukraine committed genocide in the Donetsk and Luhansk areas of eastern Ukraine, now occupied by Russia. Though the court may come up with a verdict on the issue, there is no provision to enforce them. Russian President Vladimir Putin has said that Joe Biden would be a better US president for Russia than Donald Trump and dismissed concerns over his counterpart's age and acuity for the role. Asked in a state television interview to choose between Biden and Trump, Putin said that the US leader was more experienced and predictable, adding that Russia would work with any US leader who wins the trust of the American people. The Russian president's comments came a day after Biden accused Trump of having bowed down to a Russian dictator, as he urged Republicans in Congress to defy Trump and back more funding for Ukraine.
Biden. He's more experienced, more predictable. He's an old school politician. But we will work with any US leader who the American people have confidence in. When I met Biden in Switzerland, yes, it was 3 years ago, but it does not matter. Even then people were saying that Biden was incompetent. But I did not see anything of this sort. Yes, he kept looking at his papers, but to be honest, I kept doing the same. So there was nothing peculiar.
Former US President Donald Trump said that he's not going to protect NATO allies who fail to pay their fair share. Trump sparked sharp criticism from Western leaders after saying he had told NATO members the US would not defend those who failed to spend enough on defense and would even encourage Russia to attack them.
But one of the heads of the country stood up and said, does that mean that if we don't pay the bills, that you're not going to protect us? I said, that's exactly what it means, exactly. I'm not going to protect you. And we got our allies to pay their fair share and bringing in over $400 billion to NATO. They weren't paying their bills. You've been reading about it. I've been saying, look, if they're not going to pay, we're not going to protect, okay?
Unhinged. That's how Nikki Haley described Donald Trump on Wednesday as the war of words continues between the two Republicans vying to become the party's nominee for the U.S. presidency. Haley, the former ambassador to the United Nations, took to the airwaves to lambast her ex-boss over disparaging comments the former president made about her husband, who was serving in the American military. In the past hours, Trump hit back in a rally in South Carolina ahead of next weekend's primary vote, which he is expected to win. Our U.S. correspondent Benji Haya gets us the details.
So then, certainly no love lost on Valentine's Day between the presidential candidates as the race heats up in South Carolina, where early voting is already underway. A win there would put Donald Trump firmly on course to be the Republican Party's nominee to take on Joe Biden again for the White House, and it would likely end Nikki Haley's campaign. She's come behind Trump in all the other primary votes in this process to decide the nominee. And as former South Carolina governor, a defeat in her own home state would be hard to recover from. Initially shy of attacking Trump, Haley's finally turned fire in his direction, claiming only she can be the one to beat Biden. And she's joined several fellow Republicans in criticising Trump's remarks made last weekend, when he said that his administration wouldn't defend some Western allies in the NATO alliance if they hadn't paid enough in defence and they came under attack. But she says she will still support Trump if he is the Republican candidate, though she cast doubt on whether the American people would vote for a convicted criminal. Trump, of course, faces 91 criminal charges under 4 indictments, most in relation to his alleged mishandling of classified documents and attempts to overturn the 2020 election that he lost. That trial for that was scheduled for early March, but it's been postponed. Benji Haya in Washington, reporting for DD India.
A New York judge is set to determine the trial date for the first criminal case against Donald Trump. His presence is expected at the hearing, where the judge will also address Trump's motion to dismiss the case. This decision is highly anticipated and will have significant implications. DD India's William Denslow delivers the updates from New York.
Donald Trump faces 34 felony counts tied to allegations that he made hush money payments to a porn star during his 2016 race to the White House. The man, expected to be a key witness, former fixer Michael Cohen, paid Stormy Daniels $130,000 ahead of the election, and prosecutors claim that Trump reimbursed Cohen by falsely claiming the money to be a legal expense. Trump denies the charges, and his legal team have called for a Manhattan judge to dismiss the case outright. If he doesn't, Justice Juan Merchan is expected to decide when the case, currently bookmarked for March 25th, will go to trial. Meanwhile, on Thursday, a judge in the state of Georgia will hold a hearing relating to misconduct claims against a prosecutor in Trump's election interference case. District Attorney Fani Willis is accused of having an improper relationship with the special counsel in the case, whom she appointed. And on Friday, a separate Manhattan judge is expected to make a ruling in the civil case against Trump, who's accused of inflating the value of his assets for favourable lending terms. Judge Arthur Engoron has found Trump liable for fraud, and New York prosecutors are seeking around $370 million in penalties and to bar him from running a business in the state. The former president says these cases against him are a politically motivated witch hunt. William Denslow in New York reporting for DD India.
Democrat Tom Suozzi secures victory in special elections, exceeding disgraced U.S. legislator George Santos. The Republican official faced expulsion from Congress in December, accused of fraud, money laundering and lying to the lawmakers. Seen as an indicator for November's election, the race was focused on immigration, economy and abortion. DD India's Sally Patterson gets us more insights.
In 2022, Tom Suozzi was replaced in the House of Representatives by Republican George Santos. Now the Democrat has taken back that seat. He previously served 3 terms in the US House, and his victory means the Republicans' slim majority will shrink even further. The special election in New York's 3rd District also offered an early indication of what issues voters really care about, with immigration coming out near the top. Now, Suozzi countered his Republican rival Mazi Pilot's hard line on migration and the border crisis head-on, pushing for solutions and working across political divides to address the issue. He's one of several Democrats across New York to speak out about migration as a steady flow of asylum seekers continue to arrive in the state. Governor Kathy Hochul and New York City Mayor Eric Adams have both been very vocal about the challenges they're facing. Mayor Adams called Suozzi's victory good news. Sally Patterson in New York, reporting for DD India.
All right, up next, we're heading for a short break. But after the break, demonstrations intensify in Pakistan against election results. It's love all around. New way to celebrate love at Times Square to mark the Valentine's Day. Scaffolding around Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris is starting to be removed, revealing the newly installed spire.
India that invents. India that innovates. India that excites. India that invites. Land of possibilities. Teeming with opportunities. Watch India Ideas each Thursday, 8 p.m. only on DD India.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India News Hour. A quick relook at the top stories once again. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi meets Qatari counterpart in Doha, discusses ways to boost the ties between the two nations. To meet Amir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad today. Israel vows more action against Hamas in Rafah amid global calls for restraint. Launches deadly airstrikes on Lebanon in retaliation to Hezbollah rocket fire that killed an Israeli soldier. India win the toss and opt to bat first against England in the 3rd Test match at Rajkot. Jurel and Sarfaraz Khan make their debut. Indonesian Defence Minister Prabowo Subianto has claimed victory in a presidential election on Wednesday after unofficial vote counts showed him with a huge lead among his opponents and on course for a single-round win. Crucially, Prabowo has the tacit backing of the outgoing President Joko Widodo in the elections. Meanwhile, presidential contender Anies Baswedan said that he would respect the election result but called on his supporters to monitor the official tally of votes by the Election Commission. Millions of people cast their ballots in the country's presidential, national and provincial elections on Wednesday. However, heavy rains and flooding forced the election authority to delay the polls in Demak Regency, Central Java. DD India correspondent Patrick Folk joins us from Singapore. Patrick, good morning. Can you get us the latest on the vote counting and the reactions?
Well, Preeti, it's certainly not looking encouraging for the two former provincial governors running against Prabowo Subianto. Anies Baswedan and Ganjar Pranowo haven't conceded defeat yet, and they've been calling on people to wait for the official final tally. But the unofficial quick count shows Prabowo Subianto comfortably in the lead. It does appear to be decisive, and these unofficial results have been accurate in the past. there have been some reports of voting irregularities and electoral violations, which Anies Baswedan and Ganjar Pranowo's campaign teams say they are investigating, but they haven't provided any evidence. There's also going to be some additional counting. You mentioned some of that bad weather. There's also been some other logistical challenges that meant some people weren't able to cast their ballots yesterday, but this isn't expected to have any major impact on the outcome. Prabowo himself has called on people to wait on the final results as well, but he does appear to be in a celebratory mood. President Joko Widodo congratulated his defense minister this morning, and speaking to his supporters on Wednesday night, he said that this was a victory for all Indonesians, and he pledged to govern for everyone, no matter their ethnicity, religion or social background.
All right, Patrick, now this is a result that has prompted concerns among the right activists. What more can you tell us on this?
Yeah, that's right. Prabowo Subianto is strongly opposed by human rights activists. He's best known, perhaps, for being dishonorably discharged in 1998 from the military after his Special Forces unit was found guilty of kidnapping and torturing political opponents of dictator General Suharto. He is the son-in-law of Suharto, but he maintains that he was never charged himself. There have also been lots of questions and concerns raised about the erosion of Indonesia's democratic process in these elections after President Joko Widodo maneuvered to support Prabowo. His son, Gibran Rakabuming Raka, is his running mate for the vice presidency. And the Constitutional Court tweaked eligibility rules to make it possible for him to run, even though he didn't meet the minimum age requirement. But that perhaps says a lot about the enduring appeal of President Joko Widodo. This is seen as him securing his legacy, and under him, Indonesia has enjoyed a period of significant growth.
All right, Patrick, we leave it here. Thank you for joining in with those details. Turning focus to Pakistan now, PMLN has nominated its president, Shehbaz Sharif, as the prime ministerial candidate of Pakistan instead of the party chief and three-time former premier Nawaz Sharif. His daughter, Maryam Nawaz, is the party nominee for the post of chief minister of Punjab province.
Pakistan is a polity pulling in different directions held together by the glue of convenience. Not quite connivance. A coalition of PMLN and PPP with Shehbaz Sharif as a candidate for Prime Minister.
Now, when the parliament is about to come into existence, our war will be against the challenges facing this country. The first and number one challenge is to make our economy stand on its feet. This challenge itself is like a Himalaya.
However, the co-chairman of the PPP, former President Asif Ali Zardari, expects former Premier Imran Khan's Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf to be part of the reconciliation process. Could this be because his party has just 54 seats in the House and is hoping to piggy bank on the collective strength of PTI-affiliated independents? Or could all parties be looking at a democratic revival through olive branch politics?
Reconciliation. We have to do reconciliation, and PTI is part of this reconciliation. We don't want that PTI is not part of this reconciliation. Every political force should be part of reconciliation.
The elections have raised more questions than answers. Supporters of Imran Khan believe the system was rigged from the start. Surely their votes could count for something. They voted for a candidate who wasn't even allowed to contest. What does that say of a free and fair system?
No, I'm not the only one who is disappointed. The entire nation is dismayed. Everyone is upset and everyone is feeling let down because all the agencies and other government people started hounding the person that the entire nation has selected. Imran Khan is the only one who can make this nation better. No one else can do it.
The caretaker government, which presided over the elections, is convinced that it did its job without fear or favour. This despite major world powers doubting the veracity of the poll process.
If we have to investigate, if we have to inquire, we will not do on the demand of either United States or United Kingdom or EU. We have got our own procedures. We are a sovereign country. We have got our own laws.
All said and done, Shehbaz Sharif has the backing of his brother, former Premier Nawaz Sharif. Together, the PMLN and PPP account for 134 seats, a simple majority in the 264-seat legislature. Their coalition would also apply across the provinces, with Nawaz's daughter Maryam likely to be Chief Minister of the influential Punjab province. Bureau Report, DD India.
Intensifying this week's demonstrations against election results in Pakistan, protesters gathered in Quetta, the provincial capital of Balochistan, for a sit-in stir on Wednesday. Workers and supporters of different political parties blocked all the main highways linking Balochistan with other provinces in protest against what they alleged was rigging of votes. Shops and public transport services in Quetta came to a standstill as local political parties called for a total shutdown. A political stalemate continues in Pakistan after an election that ended with Shehbaz Sharif chosen to continue leading the country. Also, efforts were underway to get the second largest party to join the government to ensure stability. Now, the new government could also face new political tensions with independent members of parliament backed by jailed former Premier Imran Khan forming the largest group in the legislature. The UK Conservative Party is bracing for electoral defeat in two previously safe seats. A by-poll or by-election, as it is known in the UK, has been called in three parts of the country over the next 2 weeks. Two of them take place on Thursday. DD India's Stuart Smith has more from London on this.
Both former safe seats are predicted to swing from a lawmaker in the governing Conservative Party to a lawmaker in Labour, the largest opposition party. Losing just one of those seats would mean this government has absorbed more by-election defeats in a single parliament than any government since the 1960s. It's no surprise for a Conservative Party which nationally is struggling to secure 25% support compared to Labour's 44% support, a 19 percentage point lead. But recent scandals over anti-Semitism amongst Labour Party lawmakers have reportedly weakened the Labour Party's lead and could affect the share of votes its by-election candidates receive. The Conservative vote could be boosted by positive comments from the Bank of England on Wednesday that it's seeing the beginning of a pickup in the economy, which the Prime Minister jumped on as evidence his government's plan is working. Local media reports the top issues for those going to the polls on Thursday are falling public services and rising prices. The seat of Wellingborough is being contested after Conservative lawmaker Peter Bone subjected a staff member to bullying and sexual misconduct, according to an independent parliamentary inquiry. His partner will be running as the Conservative candidate. The seat of Kingswood used to be held by Conservative lawmaker Chris Skidmore, but he resigned, citing Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's environmental policies and government plans for new oil and gas licences. Stuart Smith in London, reporting for DD India.
In Hungary, hundreds of people gathered in front of the presidential and prime minister's office in Budapest on Wednesday evening, protesting against Viktor Orban's government after a presidential pardon scandal that risks damaging the core appeal of Orban's fights. Now, two of Orban's key political allies, President Katalin Novak and former Justice Minister Judith Varga, were brought down by the scandal within a week. Veteran Conservative Prime Minister Orban has sought to defuse the scandal by submitting a constitutional amendment to the parliament last week, depriving the president of the right to pardon crimes committed against children. Novak resigned 2 weeks later, but Orban hasn't spoken publicly since Thursday and has made no comment at all on the two resignations. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese voted in favour of a motion in Parliament's lower house on Wednesday, calling for the return of the WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange to Australia. The motion, moved by independent lawmaker Andrew Wilkie, was passed with 86 votes in favour and 42 against after it was supported by the Labour government. Most members of the conservative opposition coalition opposed the motion. US officials are looking to extradite Assange from a British prison to the United States, where he is wanted on criminal charges over WikiLeaks' release of confidential US military records and diplomatic cables. Britain has given the go-ahead for his extradition, but Assange, an Australian citizen, has filed a possible final legal challenge to stop it. A public hearing will take place on 20th and 21st of February, when the two judges will review an earlier ruling that had refused Assange permission to appeal. Representatives of several human rights organizations in conference demanding the immediate release of a prominent attorney and activist detained last week. They expressed concern on Wednesday over Rocio San Miguel's well-being and condemned her inability to access legal representation of her choice. San Miguel is a vocal critic of the government, and she has been accused by the Prosecutor General, who is a close ally of President Maduro, of involvement in an alleged plot to kill the president. She and 5 of her relatives, who have also been detained, are being held at undisclosed locations. A gunfire incident occurred outside a landmark railroad station in Kansas City in Missouri, where the Kansas City Chiefs were celebrating their Super Bowl victory. 1 person was killed and around 21 people were wounded, including several children. Police Chief Stacey Graves confirmed 2 armed individuals were in custody. The incident occurred near Union Station, where the parade and celebrations were taking place. Around 800 law enforcement officers were present at the rally and at the parade. Children's Mercy Kansas City received patients and invited parents to contact the medical center if their child might be in their care.
Shots fired on the west side of Union Station. Immediately, officers responded to the area, took 2 people into custody, and also immediately rendered life-sustaining aid to those victims. We do not have an exact number of people who were victims of a gunshot wound. It could be upwards from 10 to 15, with 1 deceased. The people who came to this celebration should expect a safe environment. We had over 800 law enforcement officers.
For everyone who was part of it, those who have experienced or been part of or connected to a mass shooting. That is something that I hope we all recognize is highly problematic for all of us. I continue to commend our police officers, our firefighters, and others who were there to respond instantly.
A week after an oil spill was first spotted near Tobago's shore, portions of the stain are moving in opposite directions into the Caribbean Sea, the island's emergency management team said on Wednesday, putting the country's neighbors on alert. Director Alan Stewart said that spill may impact Trinidad and Tobago's coral reefs and other countries' coasts. Venezuela's Foreign Affairs Ministry said on Wednesday that the country was monitoring the spill and has initiated meetings with Trinidad's government to coordinate action. Trinidad's Coast Guard links spill to the 2 vessels allegedly bound for Guyana, a tugboat and a barge. Now, according to TEMA Director Alan Stewart, approximately 1/3 of Tobago's shoreline is cleaned and the spill is under control. We take a look at other stories making it to the headlines from across the world now. Toby Marlowe and Lucy Moss, the British composing team behind the hit musical 6, have launched their latest interpretation of relationships on Valentine's Day. The musical, which won multiple awards, premiered at the Edinburgh Fringe and was transferred to Broadway. Valentine's Day was celebrated with several couples getting engaged and married at Times Square. An ice sculpture was the centerpiece, which will be on view in Times Square until the weather permits. We're heading for a short break, but still to come on this edition of DD India News Hour. Japan's economy has slipped into a recession as it unexpectedly shrank for 2 straight quarters on weak domestic demand. Rohit Sharma to lead India at the Men's T20 World Cup in the USA and West Indies. And coming up next after the break, winners and losers in the UEFA Champions League round of 16.
India that invents. India that innovates. India that excites. India that invites. Land of possibilities. Teeming with opportunities. Watch India Ideas each Thursday, 8 p.m. only on DD India.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India News Hour. Let's get you more international updates. We'll get you the weather updates now. New York City gets hit by heavy snowfall as a winter storm hammered the northeastern United States, causing traffic disruptions in the city and prompting public schools to move their classes to the online mode. The winter storm was also prompted Westchester County, New York State, to declare a local state of emergency. The heavy snowfall hampered visibility in New York, leading the government to enforce reduced speeds for drivers on the highways. The impact of the winter storm has extended beyond New York, affecting various states in the northeastern United States. The data indicated that the storm has caused power outages for more than 100,000 of homes and businesses in the northeastern region. A series of heavy snowfall grips Massachusetts. Dashcam video captured the moment an ambulance swerved to avoid colliding with a vehicle rolling towards it on Wednesday. The ambulance was traveling to Peabody, transporting a patient to a hospital in Boston, where it spotted the car rolling towards it. The patient in the ambulance arrived safely at the hospital. A landslide in Davao de Oro province, Philippines, has left around 85 people dead and 38 are missing. The landslide hit a mining area in Mako, burying homes, vehicles and dozens of people. Local authorities have ordered mandatory evacuations for 5 nearby villages, affecting over 5,000 people. The region is known for its frequent typhoons, earthquakes and volcanic eruptions and is located in the Pacific Ring of Fire.
And retrieval operations.
Pollution levels in Thailand's capital Bangkok reached unhealthy levels on Thursday as authorities urged residents to work from home. The air quality of Bangkok is 15 times higher than the recommended level by the World Health Organization, making it the world's 8th most polluted city on Thursday. Air pollution is caused by a combination of crop-related burning, industrial pollution and heavy traffic, and a smoky haze covered Bangkok's skyline. Bangkok residents complained of itchy eyes and difficulty in breathing. All right, let's turn focus to business updates now, getting you all the action from the U.S. markets. U.S. stocks closed higher on Wednesday, bouncing back after hotter than expected inflation data drove a sell-off and dashed hopes for interest rate cuts in early spring. Calm is settling in after the surprise consumer inflation print spooked the market. Investors are coming to grips with the prospect of the Federal Reserve holding off on rate cuts until later in the year and a potential no landing for the U.S. economy. The Dow Jones Industrial Average moved up 0.4% after the index suffered a 500-point slide on Tuesday, a worst since March 2022. The S&P 500 rose almost 1%, gaining 47.45 points and ended at 5,000, while the Nasdaq Composite ended 203 points, moving up by 1.3% to 15,859. The Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 0.4%, gaining 151 points to close at 38,424. Japan's economy has slipped into a recession as it unexpectedly shrank for 2 straight quarters on weak domestic demand, raising uncertainty about the central bank's plans to exit its ultra-easy policy sometime this year. The weak performance saw Japan lose its title as the world's 3rd largest economy, replaced by Germany. The GDP fell an annualized 0.4% in the October-December period after a 3.3% slump in the previous quarter. The result compared with a median market forecast of a 1.4% increase. 2 consecutive quarters of contraction are typically considered the definition of a recession. Let's turn focus to sports now. In cricket, in the 3rd test of the 5-match series, Indian captain Rohit Sharma won the toss and elected to bat first against England in Rajkot today. India started their innings on a poor note as they lost 3 early wickets. Yashasvi Jaiswal was the first man to go. He was removed by Mark Wood for 10. Shubman Gill went back to the pavilion without opening his account. Soon, Tom Hartley removed Patidar for 5. Currently, Indian team is batting on 50 for the loss of 3 wickets. India made 4 changes in their playing 11. Batsman Sarfaraz Khan and wicketkeeper Dhruv Jurel made debut for India. Ravindra Jadeja replaced Akshar Patel, while Mohammad Siraj replaced pacer Mukesh Kumar. Rohit Sharma is set to lead India in the upcoming 2020 World Cup in June. Hardik Pandya will be the vice-captain. The announcement by the Board of Control for Cricket in India Secretary ends days of suspense surrounding the leadership of the global event in the Caribbean and the US. Rohit played for India's T20 side for the first time since the T20 World Cup semi-final in 2022 when he turned out for the home T20 series against Afghanistan. Defeat, a red card and another night of disappointment. In UEFA Champions League, Bayern Munich are beaten 1-0 at Lazio. Ciro Immobile's penalty gave Lazio a shock win over German giant Bayern Munich. Immobile scored from the spot midway through the second half after Dayot Upamecano was sent off for a foul on Gustav Isaksen. Bayern, despite a star-studded attack featuring Harry Kane, were unable to respond in an underwhelming display. It was the second defeat in 5 days for Bayern, increasing the pressure on manager Thomas Tuchel. Nevertheless, Bayern must improve in order to progress from the last 16 for the 12th time in their past 13 attempts. Okinawa World, an outdoor theme park in Nanjo City, has decorated attractions for Valentine's Day and Lunar New Year holidays. The park is illuminated and it in fact illuminated a limestone cave with pink lights attracting Taiwanese and Chinese tourists. The park also featured Lunar New Year decorations at restaurants and souvenir shops. Visitors can witness the lights until Sunday. All right, that's it in this edition of DD India News Hour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and also Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Preeti Gaur signing off, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.
Voice